America, our brothers and sisters across the Atlantic are dealing with discrimination and mistreatment of mass hysteria related to Ebola. Across the diaspora, blacks are feeling ostracized from the global discourse of how to protect their own communities. Such a lack of representation of Africans being able to address how to eradicate their own problems reflects a worldwide stigma of having black leadership. Although our issues at surface level are distinct, fundamentally we are tackling the same mission, making black lives matter. 5, there needs to be a more cross-continental discourse of connecting blacks across the diaspora. Enough with just having cultural food and music fairs. Let's have a discussion about universally helping one another socially. When I attended college, it often aggravated me how black Americans felt Africans were another foreign group of people they could not identify with. It was also troubling to see some native Africans look down on blacks in the country for not feeling as self-confident and culturally strong about their heritage. At this very moment in our present history, we are now more than ever need to put down our media-driven stereotypes about one another and have real conversations about it. Excuse me. I'm tired of seeing too many people of color help one another among regional affiliations and not the diaspora as a whole. Because the truth of the matter is that the rest of the world do not see us any differently. And by strengthening our connections, we can better combat these problems. In closing, my travels to the continent gave me a fresh perspective on how I relate to blacks across the diaspora and how their burdens shape my work here in America. A lot of what the black community is trying to look for in themselves, in our media, education, and economy, can be found in the legacy and teachings that come from our brothers and sisters across the Atlantic. This is not to say that I'm entirely dismissive of American values and opportunities. I have been privileged on a technological and industrial level. However, I do believe that it's time now to expect more than just survival and begin to thrive. It's going to take more than a village, but an entire continental shift in unifying self-value for all people of color.
So what do you think?
Well, some of this I can relate to. One thing that always I can see myself on a plane. I think it was the first time I was on a plane was the Kenyan Airways from Kenya to Tanzania. And so even the icons are black, right? Mm-hmm. So, open the window, here's a flight attendant. Everything was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. It was cool. And to get in a place where you do not see that many white people, but you still see them, mm-hmm. but not that many, and you're part of the majority, it is an overwhelming thing, at least color-wise, part of the majority. Mm-hmm. And I've never been to West Africa. I've never been there, so I cannot speak on that. But I've been to East Africa 5 times, and to Kenya and Tanzania and Zambia and Zimbabwe and Zanzibar. And I think it's pretty obvious that even though you're just as brown as everybody else, that you're still an American. And I don't think there's any denial of that. Now, some people, but I don't believe it, but it's easy. I mean, when you are out of the country, you can tell another American, either if they're black or white, because there's just something about being an American that is just, I don't know, I call it a certain kind of swag that someone has. I'm glad this guy spent his 10 days and found himself, but, I'm going to trump him because I've spent more time than 10 days. And no, I've never been to Ghana. I've never been to West Africa. There are good things about it. There's certainly nothing bad about the going, but I don't know. I mean, it's hard to explain.
But you know what? You see,
I think, before you go, I do believe that every black person should go to some place on the continent and find that place. The reason that I picked East Africa is because I don't know, just to me, I mean, I stare at maps and that just looked like the center of the world. And, you know, I said, where I'm going to go here and I'm going to find whatever it is I'm looking for. And it being on the Indian Ocean, and I really don't like landlocked places. I expected a very interesting mix of African, Arab, and Indian, which I indeed got. And of course, I limit myself to English-speaking places. And I went, not like you, for an athletic reason, but for political reasons. So at the first time I went, Julius Nyerere was still alive. And so here we have one of the elder socialists that was still alive, that was living their whole idea of setting up that country as a form of African socialism. The fact that they were a refuge for South African freedom fighters running into Tanzania. And they had a school, the Solomon Mthlango Freedom College. So these were certain things that, I mean, I just expected to be in a very progressive place. And, you know, I'd been to enough European countries to know that I wanted to see something that I had never seen. And indeed I did. So,
you know, we had a discussion some time ago about me growing up in Trinidad and Tobago. And I was saying to you that when I grew up, everything was predominantly black.
Right.
Almost everything I saw was black.
And so
I didn't think that there were other people that, I didn't think that there was discrimination.
Okay.
Because I didn't have to deal with that. It could have been. Now, there could be, I mean, you know, maybe there could be financial discrimination because, you know.
Class
discrimination because, you know, we were poorer than the other people. But I never, there was, but it never really, because it was.
So you're saying that you don't think that you would feel that an African would, I mean, I'm just trying to jump to what you're going to, I believe you're going to say, reject, that you don't feel like Africans would have any issues with their identity and perhaps more of a pride in themselves because they don't feel the same kind of oppression that someone here.
Yeah. When I came here, I didn't feel like I was oppressed at all.
Well,
I didn't feel like, because I didn't have to deal for the first 18 years of my life. I didn't have to deal with racism. For example.
Let's stay here on Africa for a second.
Yeah.
No, excuse me. I know that, and you know, and I'm not trying to make this about me, but I mean, I had a similar situation growing up in a segregated suburb of Detroit, where, you know, and I learned that in Michigan, segregation was, you know, just par for the course later on in my life. But I just thought, because I didn't see white people, I didn't have white teachers, my doctor, the orthodontist, anybody around me, I did not see white people. Maybe a couple. Of course, they were on television, but I didn't see them living any better than the way I was brought up. So, of course, you know, you can live segregated or away from, you know, other groups of people. I never had met a Jewish person. I never thought of white ethnic people. I didn't think that they had, you know, thought of themselves as Italian or Irish. None of that even occurred to me until I went away to college. So, you know, I wasn't in Trinidad, but I was separated from these people. Now, but in Africa, to think that, you know, I mean, there's just so many lessons out of this. Now, here I go over here, someone not fond of imperialism and colonial mentality, and even though those days are over, you know, you get a different view of how people think and operate and treat others. I mean, just like somebody would say, one time when I was watching television and I was with someone and they said that, you know, come to Jamaica. You've seen those commercials. Come to Jamaica, man, you know. Yeah. And then they say yes. And who do they show laying on the beach but white people being served by black people? And so even if you Google a lot of these African countries, especially the ones with nice beaches like Tanzania and Zanzibar or Kenya or Mombasa, and you put in travel, you will see white people on the beach because, you know, they are hoping to attract those tourists, and so you're going to want to see someone that looks like you. You know, I mean, I think that everyone should go, and I think it's very, very, very important, I mean, for a black person to go. And not just to cities, but into rural areas and spend time and deal with people and meet them. But, you know, I mean, it was there where, I mean, one time I took these students. I'll do a quick story. And I would fly cheap as possible. And so this flight took us from British Airways. A British Airways flight took us to Kenya. And then from Kenya, we would cross the border to Tanzania, however, a cab, bus, or whatever. So we got to the border of Kenya and Tanzania, me and these two students, and a relative, an in-law, was to meet us at the bus station. And this is pre-cell phone time. And we're sitting there, you know, and it wasn't easy to make calls back then either. We're sitting there at the border crossing, just waiting. And someone opened the door and said, "Hey, Black American, the phone is for you." Now, how do they know that they know. I mean, I was walking around late at night, and little kids would come and start dancing around me, singing, "I'm Zongo, I'm Zongo." I'm like, what does that mean? They're calling you white person. Now, it's not like my skin is light and that, you know, I'm any different color than, because Tanzanians come in every shade. But there is something about being an American that you can see even in the dark. And to deny that or to act like that doesn't exist, it's wrong. I mean, the last time we were there, we were in Zanzibar, we were at this Indian restaurant. I'm like going to this very, 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 very long hallway to get to a bathroom. And this other woman is coming toward me and she says, "Which way is the bathroom?" And I said, "It's over there." And I'm like, "Where are you from?" She's like, "Atlanta. How about you?" And I'm like, "From New Jersey." And then we just started laughing, you know, and then we ended up hanging out later on. But it's like you can tell your own people. You can tell your own people anywhere. I'm walking, you know, in Vietnam in a park, and a woman is behind me. And, you know, all like for the 2 weeks I was there, I said, "God, if I could just see somebody black, please." It was just really hard. And on the last 2 days, I saw some black people. One was this really tall black man who lived in Philly, another teacher. But when I was in this park walking to this mall, this woman is behind me. She said, "A sister in Vietnam." And I said, "How does she know that we were from the same place?" You know, and then lo and behold, she ended up a person from Harlem who was a jazz singer. So I'm just saying to you that, yes, people say that our history does not start once we were abducted and placed on boats and sent here. But a new person, I believe, a new type of person emerged from all that oppression and slavery. And it's a black American. And I can understand. I mean, I understand the Raven-Symoné thing. There's no way I would deny my African DNA, you know, it's running through my children, and I would, if I had to run away, I would run away to Tanzania, at least if I had a beach house and a heartbeat. But to act like, you know, we are them 100% after we've been changed so much, I don't know, it's just not fair. Are you still with me, Anselm?
Yeah, of course. You know, I you know, I read the book, Quick to Listen and Slow to Speak.
I don't know about that, but
but there's also another story that we want to get to.
Which one was that?
We're going to get to this one after the break. After demonstrating success, Oakland Black Male Achievement Program being copied in other cities. When we come back, we're going to discuss that. We'll be right back.
Coming soon, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The South Orange Maplewood Online Radio Experience.